What's up, YouTube? So apparently, Diane Keaton was considered for the role in Saturday Night Fever, which went to Karen Lynn Gorney. And how do I think about it in hindsight? Actually, when I look at Karen Lynn Gorney, I could kind of see Diane Keaton because her hair, if you remember in the Godfather 2, the curly locks, that's that type of vibe. From an imagery perspective, I could see it. From an imagery perspective. Um, I hadn't even really thought about it until I thought about Karen Lynn Gorney, and then starts to kind of make sense because um, it kind of hit me where it's like, yeah, I could really see that in totality because they did bear a little bit of resemblance. It was kind of like the imagery. I think it's because of the curly locks and the facial structure. You know, I'm always reminded when I think about Hollywood because Danny Glover once said everything is cosmetic, and so often then when you look at headshots and the hair lengths and the dress attire, you can almost see these things coming into your visual. It's almost like wow. And I didn't even think about it that Diane Keaton could have probably had that role. Now, Karen Lynn Gorney didn't look like the standard actress type, but it worked for the film because they had a lot of actors off of Broadway. The thing about Hollywood back in the day is that it's kind of like in sports, like in baseball, when you have that pinch hitter or you have that unsung hero. That's how they used to do movies. It wasn't until I want to say 90s on where you see more where you had to have a main co-star, you had to have a main. Times you had movies with just an unknown. It was almost like we used to call it out of body experience where someone just, you're like, wow, I didn't see that working like that. They auditioned people and it was kind of like almost like the nobody that became a somebody. And there was an era like that. So actually it was a smart move because if you were in a movie and it blew up and you had a main star and someone that was kind of like a cast-off, then they made the movie 10 times bigger. So this was an interesting situation. But when I think about Diane Keaton's imagery, and then I think about Karen Lynn Gorney, I say, yeah, I could see that kind of vibe there because it dawned on me looking at the imagery, and then I thought, okay, I could definitely see why one was passed on it and how it became